Morning, everybody. Welcome to the Motion Engineering Services Plant Shutdown and Preventable Maintenance webinar. I'm Steve Zimmerman. I'm the General Manager for Industrial Services. I primarily look after heavy fabrication and site maintenance across different wide range of plants. I'm also accompanied with Anthony O'Keefe, which is in charge of Special Engineering Services. See you there, Anthony?
G'day, Steve. Thank you. Yeah. So my name's Anthony O'Keefe, as Steve just said, and my responsibility is looking after the specialty site services that we provide to our customers around the country. And we've got a team of reliability technicians as well as reliability engineers that assist our customers in their plant maintenance, but also what we're talking about today, which is specific around the plant shutdown periods. Thanks, Steve.
Move on. So we're also going to be having a questionnaire, Q&A at the end of the session, but also through the session, there's going to be a couple of little questionnaires come up for you guys to answer. So I all encourage you to get involved and see if you can click out the right questions. They're quite basic, so should be pretty easy for you. Move on. So today's outline, we're going to be talking about Motion Engineering's its capability as a whole. We're going to be introduction to our plant shutdowns, our traditional maintenance processes between what Anthony's team does and obviously my team as Industrial Services. Just primarily, I just also want to just emphasise that in Industrial Services, we mainly work with tradies. So I employ a lot of fitters, boilermakers and riggers, so just so people understand the differences between the technical side and also the people that carry out the shutdowns or the maintenance. Anthony will talk a little bit later on around roles of condition monitoring. He'll talk about his site services overview. I'll then talk a little bit about the industrial services overview. We'll talk about our shutdown management processes, the way both of us set ourselves up when we are going into a large shutdown or a preventable maintenance shut. There'll be some case studies there that I'll go through for all of you to see, because pictures show 1,000 words, so you'll get a better picture on what we sort of do. We'll go through some post-shutdown activities. It's more around the commissioning side of it and acceptance testing for both Anthony's crew and my crew. We'll do some safety considerations that we do and that we monitor through shutdowns. We'll then obviously go through our motions value propositions, and then at the end of that, it'll be a Q&A session. Move on. So Motion Engineering's capabilities. So this is everything that comes under engineering services. So not just not just industrial services and special engineering services. This is pretty much the whole package. So it's round about assessment and reviews, designs, analysis, repair and refurbishment, manufacturing and assembly, us as site services, right through to the turnkey solutions. So we specialise as a whole when we're all grouped together under engineering services capability, is specialising in design and engineering, manufacturing, repair and maintenance, serving the private and public sector customers nationally and internationally, expertise in manufacturing, mining, mineral processing, heavy engineering, material testing, power generation and resource sectors. We have developed a range of core competencies that set us apart from our competitors that enables motion services to our customers on plant shutdowns and more. It's more or less in a nutshell, it's telling us it's like the one-stop shop. You can, instead of having to go from one business to another business to get your services, we can get it all within Motion Engineering Services. We've got the engineering there, you've got the assembly part things, you've got the designs, we've got assembly and manufacturing when we do rebuilds, you've got your site services, and we've also got our specialist engineering services. I'll move on. So just an introduction of plant shutdown. What is a scheduled plant shutdown? So it's where an operational plant comes to a halt and it stops its operations for us to be able to go in there and do maintenance repairs or inspections or replacements of things that need to be replaced that's maybe at its end of its life cycle, or things that have been monitored over a certain period of time that need to be replaced. It ensures our machinery operates at peak performance and prevents breakdowns. We have worked in previous plants before where they didn't do a lot of maintenance, and I use the terminology run to fail. Generally, that means they'll operate the plant and only stop and fix it if something breaks down. It's not a very, very good way to do business. I mean, it's not cost effective, and in the long run, it costs them a lot more money. Then they've got to actually have spares and parts there. The downtime's a lot longer. So something that's planned or scheduled for a plant shutdown will always outweigh the run to fail. Why do shutdowns matter? Well, like I've just said before, prevents unexpected failures and costly disruptions, minimises our downtime and maintenance operational efficiency, and ensures safety and compliance with regulations. Your gear and equipment lasts a lot longer, and obviously where they're keeping on top of their operations, and it gives them a lot better outcome for future planning. Move on. So this picture here just shows there's two types of planned shutdowns. You've got them where only certain parts of the plant will come down to do repairs. If you're in a large complex plant, different sections across the plant will come down at different times, and there's a reason for that. One, that there's enough labour around to be able to manage the processes and the shutdowns, and obviously two, so the parts of the other plant can still operate and still make money. So this photo just gives you a bit of an outlook where only partial of a plant came down. As you can see there, for people that may or may not know, they're cooler pans, the replacement. The ones in the silver are the new ones that got replaced, and either side of that you can see the older ones. So they're scheduled because what happens is it comes to its end lifespan and it needs replacement. Otherwise it starts to corrode, and the raw materials and product that may run around that starts seeping through. So that's a scheduled one, and this one here in particular, there's probably about 8 or 9 times where these pans have to get done for the whole rotation of all of them to be replaced. Move on. And this photo here just shows the whole plant as a whole. So we may go down where the whole plant comes down for a period of time. Generally, the ones where the plants comes down for a certain period of time, they're generally a lot longer. They may go for a week or even 2 weeks, or sometimes even longer, just depending on the workload that has to happen and the time period, obviously, that the plant can be down at. Move on. So now we've got a quick Q&A for you guys to answer. The question is, what best defines a plant maintenance shutdown? A, is it maintaining equipment whilst plant continues operating? B, maintain equipment whilst operations have stopped unexpectedly due to a breakdown? Or is it plant maintenance has been planned and conducted during a scheduled halt in operations?
All right, so we're going to have a Q&A round. Pop your answers in the Q&A chat. What best defines a plant maintenance shutdown? Is it A, maintaining equipment whilst plant continues operations? B, maintain equipment whilst operations have stopped unexpectedly due to a breakdown? Or is it C, plant maintenance has been planned and conducted during a scheduled halt in operations? So we'll just give you some time to pop your answers, and then we'll move on. This is also your chance to ask questions for Anthony or Steve. So if there's anything that you want to know, then pop your questions in. I can see a couple answers coming through, so we'll just give it a couple seconds. All right, and the correct answer is Anthony or Steve?
Oh, sorry, C, plant maintenance has been planned and conducted during a scheduled halt in operations.
Perfect. All right.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Shevlin. Thanks, Steve. So what I wanted to talk about now, guys, was, and I just to reiterate what Shevlin was saying there, I really encourage if there's any questions or any comments with what, with regard to what Steve and I are talking about, please shoot them in the Q&A section. We'll certainly we'll get a chance to go over all those questions at the end of the presentation. But so what we also wanted to talk about was just, please appreciate that there's certain people on we assume there's people on the call with a lot of experience, and there's also some with obviously a far less amount of experience. So we wanted to give it a really basic understanding of, what is a traditional model of where we provide maintenance support for our customers, and it's some really simple tasks, but it's all about trying to improve the reliability ultimately of the equipment that we're servicing and we're supporting our customers with. And in this particular model, it's a simple model, but it works unbelievably well when we do it well. Which is the first piece, which is weekly lubrication schedule, and they've got a lubrication route which is walked through at the start of every week, of which there is obviously visual inspections done at the same time as greasing or oil, refilling oil and load levels and so forth, as part of a PM schedule. But also as part of that, we're taking thermal imaging and recording temperatures, the operating temperatures of equipment. So we've got a very basic condition, monitoring the condition of the assets that we're servicing. Now, so with that, we obviously get an opportunity to record some of the changes in operating conditions, be it through, as I say, visually something doesn't look right, or hearing something doesn't sound as right, or so like I say, or the temperature is increased in a particular piece of equipment. So then we start running graphs and trending and having a baseline that we're working against. But also what's critical in that is our vibration analysis that we conduct. So what vibration analysis does, it provides us with a lot of information with respect to the health of equipment well before it needs to be changed out. But what it is, it's a fantastic supportive method of measuring the condition. So, for example, we use oil analysis and grease analysis, and typically that will indicate a problem well before a vibration has occurred with a particular bearing problem, for example. Now we use those different methods of condition monitoring together in order to assist in generating work orders, and then working with our customers as far as maintenance planners and site managers to understand exactly what is required. Now that might be to the extent of some of the example that Steve just provided, with some real heavy piece of equipment, but it also could be something as simple as the next down day we have available. We're going to be available to have a particular piece of equipment for 2 hours or 4 hours to do a particular change out. And that's all done based on the planning, on the information that's been provided in the condition monitoring methods. And it's really important that we go about doing that. And then just as important about going about the change out and organising the labour and the skills and the right people for the task, and on the tools, of course, is also post the installation of the change out again, we're monitoring the same methods that we used prior to the shutdown and identified the fault. We also use those same methods with condition monitoring and also thermography to ensure what the item that's been repaired is actually running well, as per the needs of the customer, to ensure that there won't be unexpected failure on startup, which is the old bathtub failure mode that I think a lot of you guys would have seen before. So we have to be very careful that what we do is monitored well before startup, during that commissioning phase, and obviously working with our customers closely in that process. Thanks, Daniela. So some of the most traditional condition monitoring methods that we mentioned earlier is vibration analysis is still very much at the forefront of a condition monitoring method that we use, and it provides so much information for us. For you guys that aren't familiar with vibration analysis and the details of it, there's the signatures that are provided in vibration analysis provide us with a lot more detail than something is vibrating. So therefore, we know that there's a problem there. The spectrums and the signatures that are in the actual data for the vibrations, it actually there's a lot that tells us with regard to if it's rotating looseness, or if it's a case of there's a bearing fault, or if it's a case of there's a likely misaligned coupling, or if it's a out of balance pulley, out of balance impeller, or something along those lines. And what that information then provides to us is a really clear understanding of for the planning process of what work needs to be done, and also what work we need to be preparing ourselves for. If it's a case of a bearing change out on the crusher, for example, then that could be planned specifically around that. We know the signature of the failure signatures of a particular bearing. We know what bearings are actually in different locations within a crusher. Okay, therefore we know we can target one particular task as opposed to pulling the whole crusher out, for example, if it's available like that. But it's also what we can also do is, through the oil analysis, we can start planning, because if we see things like chromium or nickel, which are highly used in the bearing manufacture, it starts coming through in oil analysis. Well, then we start thinking, well, we've got issues with far as bearing fatigue is concerned, well before there's actually a flaw in the bearing that would actually cause vibration. And also with thermography, they are three absolutely core condition monitoring methods that we use, and it's all about the planning. So from our point of view, from a customer's point of view, we want to be able to assist in the planning for that particular change out. If we're doing the change out ourselves, or our customers have got their maintenance staff that would be conducting the work themselves, that's we work with whatever the need of the customer is. So it's absolutely, from the benefits point of view, we want to be able to improve the reliability of the equipment, of course, but also ensure that they'll assist as much as we can in the planning process to keep the plant, as far as the outage is concerned, to the shortest period, and also to the lowest cost as far as repair is concerned. Thanks, Daniela. So some of the basic, the services that we provide. We'll go a little bit more in a little bit more detail on this, but what this gets around is where we are, as far as my team is concerned, in particular, subject matter experts, and particular knowing, of course, as a major bearing distributor, no surprise that we have quite a bit of expertise in bearing installations and failure, root cause analysis of failures, and also the installations of new applications to ensure that the bearings have been installed correctly. And that also goes as far as, with fans, as far as balancing is concerned, and also laser alignment as far as for pumps or any coupling drive that needs to be installed. We absolutely focus on, within tolerances of 1 to 2 thou on the vast majority of the jobs that we're working to, as opposed to the more traditional fabrication type work where the structural type gear that Steve's guys are working to, which are a little bit they're not working with the same level of tolerances. However, they're working with far greater and heavier equipment. So there's a different level of focus and expertise that's required. But we certainly complement each other in the services that we offer. Next, Daniela. So again, we talk about the comprehensive support and from the workshop side of things, which is really important because for a company like ourselves, with the national footprint that we have for our branch network, but we also have it with our workshop network also. So we're very fortunate to be in a situation where we've got extensive workshops around the capacity or capability in those workshops to, if we are working on site, we can do modifications to equipment, or if we're in the middle of a shutdown and there's unexpected, because no one likes surprises, let's be honest, when it comes to shutdown work. But if there are circumstances that arise that weren't planned for prior, the ability to have a workshop at our disposal and also at our control is significant, because it means we can prioritise that work for where our teams are out on site, to ensure that the customers are impacted the least as possible, and we can address any issues as quick as possible. So absolutely prioritising the customer's needs is at the forefront of our mind. Thanks, Daniel. So another basic bit of a Q&A as far as the question is concerned. Daniel, do you want to read this one out, or do you want me to go? So which of the following is not a method of condition monitoring used by the motion site services team? A, vibration analysis, B, thermography, or C, high voltage testing. And again, that's a pretty simple question based on we know what we is in our wheelhouse, which is very much mechanical. So I think that will assist you in being able to answer that question pretty simply. And also, just I'm sure that Steve mentioned that we'll find a couple of prizes in the marketing prize draw for these guys, these answers, guys. So yeah, don't be shy putting an answer in, and we'll randomly chuck it, pick some names out, and we'll send some prizes out for sure. Thanks, Daniela.
All right, so another round of Q&A. Which of the following is not a traditional method of condition monitoring used by the motion site services team? Is it A, vibration analysis, B, thermography, or C, high voltage testing? Again, I encourage everyone to ask questions for Anthony and Steve, and we'll get them to answer at the end of the session. There are a couple of answers coming through. Just give it a couple of seconds. All right, and the correct answer is Anthony or Steve?
Yeah, C.
C. Perfect.
Okay, thanks, Anthony. So just on some what industrial services involvement is, just for you guys, even though we've gone through some of the things that we've already been involved in, but we specialise in the mining, manufacturing, and construction industry. So just for the ones that aren't sure on how we work here, I'll give you a little bit of an example of the business that I run down in Unanderra in Wollongong area. We probably have a workforce of around the 40 odd, and 90% of those people go on site every day. We have 10% that work in the workshop where they do the fabrication, the heavy fabrication, and the rest are all on site doing site services and looking after the plants for different customers across Illawarra. So we focus our business around what I've just said with the manufacturing and constructive industry, but also in fluid power, electro-hydraulic engineering and design, undercarriages that's mining equipment, and maintenance and project services. Full service support for maintenance, refurbishment, repairs, and overhauls throughout equipment of its life cycle. So we ride the journey with them, especially if we're looking after a particular part of plant and the customer relationship's really, really good. We continue servicing that. I'd just like to also note out that our workshop also is there to support site. So if we're out there on site and something needs to come back to the workshop to get repaired or overhaul, we certainly do that, and we get that back to the client's operations as quickly as we can. Move on, please. So just in their workshop on its own, or capabilities for maintenance services, we do have experience in supervision and project management, experience on site inducted personnel, depending on which site you are going to, the general site fabrication, which I spoke about before, and the erection side of it. So a lot of the times our workshop will build something that we've tendered and we've won under a contract, and we might build a big structure, and then the site guys go back out there and install it after it's been fabricated from the shop. Just crane rail replacement and repairs. I'll go a little bit into that, what I mean, on a couple of case studies shortly. I'll show you what that means. And obviously our safety and quality management systems. We have a good safety system, and we have a head of safety people, not only down here in Wollongong, but also up Sydney and Chullora, that head the good part of the whole motion banner up there. Move on. Just the shutdown management process, step by step. This is mainly how we set ourselves up as site services when we go out there and we work with the client nice and closely just to understand what it is. So we receive a shutdown date from the customer. We confirm and then we finalise the schedule. So we'll sit down with them and we work through the workload, making sure that we've got the right capabilities, the right people on the job, and also we understand the timeline and the time frame we have to execute the job. We evaluate the task and the capabilities, like I've just said, especially around making sure, we've got the right trade mix to carry out those shuts. Ensure our stock availability. That's not just the spares, but it's also gear and equipment. And then obviously we go and execute the shut with the appropriate personnel. One thing I will say is preparation is the biggest part of any shutdown. The more prep you put into it, the more time you put in it, the better execution you have. So from every nut and bolt that you may have to supply to the gear and equipment, ensuring you've got the right gear and equipment on the job, you're going to have a better execution. You're always going to have your little hiccups here and there, but you'll always overcome it and they'll outweigh it and you'll have a successful shutdown. So with my guys, if there's one thing that, I talk about to them is around responsibility and commitment. If they can get that right and the pre-planning right, the execution will be fine. Next, please. So I'm just going to go into some case studies now, just to give you a bit of an idea on what I've just spoken about when I talk about fabrication and erection. This is a large acid tank that we actually fabricated in the workshop first, and then our site guys have gone out and installed this after it had been fabricated. And you can see a few photos there, and there was some really tight tolerances trying to get this in position, but there was a lot of homework and cloud scans done to make sure that that this thing was going to fit when we went to install it. It had to get made in 2 sections because of that reason, that we only had a certain part where we could come down to lower this into position with a large crane and obviously then transferred it onto chain blocks and rigged it in with our riggers. The bottom right-hand corner there is when the 2 halves are actually joined together, and it assembles the whole tank. Not only that, we had to then build platforms and whatnot around that to be able to access the tank. So that's a pretty good overview on where we talk about fabricate it first, and then go and erect it after it's been fabricated. Next slide. This is just a team of guys with a supervisor, project managing a job with a couple of our tradesmen there, looking at a few things there on what they're going to do. You see up in the top there, the silver stainless steel pipe section, that's what they installed. This pipe was pre-made again, and then there's a long run of piping that had to get installed, and it was another one where it was a testing task, because as you can see, there's not much headroom under there and so forth. So there was a fair bit of ringing involvement in that, trying to get those sections in. Next slide. Here I talked about rail work from crane rails down to transfer trolley cars. This is an actual transfer trolley that sits on these rails. We specialise in replacement of rail and actually welding the rail together, whether it's generally puddle welding, we call that. It's where they butt up the 2 sections of rail and we have to weld those 2 together. It's generally 2 guys at one time are welding at the same time. Next slide. This here just shows us some of our fabrication and specialised guys that work in the TIG welding side of it and the pipe working side. You see a guy on the bottom there in an awkward position trying to do a repair on the run. Again, it was a scheduled shut, that one there, but the crack was in an awkward position. But our guys they learn and experience over the years to get in certain positions to be able to do those repairs. Next slide. This here was this was another big job where we had to have safety involved, helping us out through this, because it is a large working at heights job, and we're probably roughly 90 foot in the air. We had to replace the top of that ducting there. It was a big vent duct that went round the building, and the roof was completely corroded. So we've had to fabricate the roof and then install the roof. This particular job actually went around the clock, so it went 24/7 for a period of time. but it was a very successful shut, and we did have some really good outcomes from it. And safety is just as important as quality. So we had to put a lot of things and a lot of measures in place to be able to successfully carry this job out. And there was a lot of pre-work and planning involved prior to it. You can't see it in this photo, but there is scaffolding on the edge of that as well to support the drop zone. But it was really, really well executed. Next slide. This is another job here. This is a particular point of plant that came down only on its own, was to change what they call a shaker screen. And again, as you can see, there's a lot of chain blocks hanging there. So there was a lot of rigging configuration involved to be able to get this into position. And again, there's only a small area for it to come through the building to come into this position to get transferred from a crane onto these chain blocks to get it into what we call its home position, or its final laydown position for where it operates. Safety involved again there. The guys have got harnesses on, because when the shaker screen was out, you probably see in the centre there is a drop zone. It's a chute that sits under theirs. And then once the shaker screen came closer to the ground, obviously we're not exposing our guys to the ground there. Next slide. We've already seen that one earlier, but again, it's another one where we changed out the pans, and again, it's about scheduled stuff. These things corrode and they only have a certain lifespan, so we've gone in there with large cranes. That big crane there is a 300 tonner, and that's because of the weight and also the reach. It was quite a long way where we had to park the crane to be able to position it, to be able to get these cooler pans in position. Next slide. I'll hand that over to you now, Anthony.
Beauty, thanks, Steve. And just so the example Steve has just gone through there are some major outages, and obviously some really heavy lifting work. Another one of the services that we provide during these major outages is specific services that are required, as far as in particular around our particular, where we are subject matter experts, and one of those areas, naturally enough, is, like I said earlier, is with bearing installation. So of the thousands and thousands of bearing installs, I've plucked a bit of an example here of an application where, and to go on what Steve was saying earlier, the planning in these jobs is absolutely paramount. Like, no one likes surprises in the middle of a shutdown. Anyone that's been involved with maintenance would agree with that. No more than a breakdown. But so in this particular example, we had an application where the rotation was so slow that vibration analysis was very unreliable. So what we were working with in this particular case was grease analysis to identify, okay, we had higher iron levels in the grease. Okay, so what was likely to be a cause of that, and then working with the customer in the planning process to identify, okay, what are the likely causes of that, of the iron levels, or where is it likely coming from, and then putting a plan together. Okay, obviously we knew we were going to be changing the bearings out, but it's more than that. Okay, what is the iron? And sure enough, we suspected it was more than likely going to be the housing, and sure enough, it was. As well as that, we had pretty significant wear in the bearings also. So what was then done in the middle of, as far as the shut was concerned, okay, because we've got the expertise here, is made recommendations on what modifications need to be made to the housing, and what also, as far as the mating components are concerned. In this particular bearing, it's set, the preload is set with springs. So we identified, okay, what needed to be replaced on all at very, very short notice, working very closely with the customer and identifying, okay, this is the ultimate solution. This is the procedure that we need to follow. Are you on board with this? It will take us X number of hours, and making sure that the customer is fully up to speed with what is required in order for us to be able to make the repair back to what the OEM spec would be. And sure enough, that this particular example all went back together absolutely spot on. And again, it was made so much easier because of the planning stage, but also having the expertise in our team to be able to make the call and provide advice on the job in the middle of the job. Thanks, Daniela. So it's critical from our point of view. We're working closely with, in particular, like with Steve's team, who would traditionally be overseeing the overall the shutdown procedure, and we would actually be working under Steve's crew because of the support that we would then be providing in the areas where it is we are the experts in those particular areas. So what that then allows for, as far as motion is concerned, is and working with our customers as a seamless collaboration between the off-site and on-site, because we've also got work, obviously, the support around our workshops. But in particular, when it comes to the expertise in my team, that then complements the Steve's heavy lifting team. Because one thing that my team don't have, and I don't pretend we do, is certainly the skills in the rigging side of gear, and that is such an important part. And Steve will touch on the safety side of things later in the presentation, but it's so critical that we understand where we fit in the shutdown period and the process. And certainly, our expertise provides us the opportunity to support our customers in the area of rotating equipment. But also when it comes to the skills that we're not experts in, we also know to make sure we've got the resources in Steve's team who we can call on, and we've done that, and we'll go through a case study in the, I think it's the next slide, Daniela. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, so here's a great example of where that came into fruition. We were working with a client on we had some grease analysis identified that the bearing was in a bad way, and we knew that there was a procedure needed to be written up effectively on how to change these particular bearings out. No doubt. Our team had the expertise, and there's no worries from a bearing point of view. However, in order to be able to get to the bearings, it was quite an extensive rigging plan that needed to be written up as far as the lift plan was concerned. And Steve's team were absolutely paramount in that particular in that part of the project. So it was the heavy lifting was done effectively primarily by Steve's team, but even to the point where we needed to be able to, once we wanted to be able to remove the rollers from the application in order and be able to transport them back to the workshop. Well, obviously we had to manufacture cradles in that, which was Steve's team, and in the workshop they carried out that particular task for us. So it meant that we actually were able to transport the rollers in safety back to a workshop where we can conduct the work, do the complete rebuild before getting them back into service. And returned back into the application, where the final bearing install was done in situ. Where my team were involved in that part, working closely with Steve's team, who were doing all the rigging whilst the setup was being done as far as the bearing install was concerned. And that was absolutely the seamless process, and that was always done within the time frame of a couple of days faster than what was originally expected. Plus, also what was done in that particular job was, the gearbox rebuild was done in situ, and what was critical with that was the opportunity to do the gearbox rebuild, but also conduct the post condition monitoring tests that we just spoke about a little bit earlier. So if you want to just check on the next slide, please, Daniela. Yeah, so just as far as that particular example is concerned, it started with oil analysis, sorry, I beg your pardon, grease analysis, the tribology for that, and we identified that the bearing was in a bad way. So then it was a case of cleaning out as much grease as we possibly could to then do a physical inspection of the bearing, and that at that point was identified that spalling had occurred in the raceway, so the bearing was earmarked. It had to be changed out. There was no question about that. So then we worked with, as I say, worked with the customer very closely, but also brought in our own specialty team, which is Steve's team, to identify to work through the plan of, okay, what is the procedure here for a safe and efficient rebuild of this particular bit of gear, and all each process in that was involving the customer to make sure the customer was fully aware of exactly what we were doing, how we were planning. Did that meet their requirements as far as the access to the asset was concerned? Okay, was the availability of our team available to meet within the timeframe of our customer? But were all the tools that were identified that were required for the task? Okay, we had to have them out on site. Okay, and it was all due to the planning in that particular job that meant that the job went through seamlessly. Next one, thanks, Daniela. So that, and again, like I said earlier, the post shutdown acceptance testing is critical also, because and unfortunately it can get neglected when production is staring over your shoulders and demanding to get equipment back into service from an operations point of view. It's certainly from our point of view, wherever we possibly can, we're strongly recommending, and we will try to insist wherever we've got the influence, at least, that we would always want to do acceptance testing and condition monitoring of a piece of equipment that we've just replaced, to ensure that it is actually running in a condition that's suitable, and the customer can expect significant life. Whereas we've had examples where the production is, I think everyone in maintenance has had experience where production pressures have meant that the jobs get done as fast as possible, put them back into service as quick as possible, and then the outcomes are not great, and then everyone's standing in a room pointing fingers at each other. We try to do everything we possibly can to avoid those situations by firstly, obviously, doing the job right and planning the job appropriately, but also allowing the time in that planning process to do the acceptance testing wherever we possibly can. Sometimes we can't. Well, that's just the way things work, of course. But we do whatever we possibly can. And what it also provides us with is, especially when we're involved with a major overhaul, like that last roller changeout we spoke of, it provides confidence to the customer that yes, this is the condition that it was handed over in, to knowing full well that that's the baseline to where the customer can start from, knowing before the next shutdown or the next maintenance period in 12 months, 2 years, 3 or 5 years, whatever the case might be. Thanks, Daniela. But Steve?
Thanks, Anthony. I just wanted to also make note that when we are on post-shutdown and we talk about post-shutdown, it's also classed as commissioning phase. And generally, there's a lot of other things that go in towards the end of that, and especially around Q&A and paperwork and traceability. There's a lot of what we call ITPs or inspection sheets that when they are doing a maintenance shutdown, they're filled in and returned back to the client, just to ensure that they know what the repair was carried out, and obviously a recording of what may need to be done for next shutdown, depending on the lifespan of it. I also wanted to add that we spoke a fair bit about stuff we've fabricated and installed, but the large part of the business is also around about maintenance, and it's about utilising fitters and going in and doing shutdown work on mills and stuff like that. So a greatly part of our business is around down days and shutdowns, which the fitters and that come to play. I mean, I also look after a business out in Queensland area in the Surat Basin where they work out there remotely, and they do general maintenance on the plant that operates every day, and that the plant operates 24/7. So our guys out there, they do 12 days on and 9 days off, but they're constantly looking at work orders or they call them PMs or correctives, or they might see something that when they're walking around the plant doing a repair or changing out something that they may have to change out, and they might see something that's not right. So they call that a corrective. So that's where we work closely with our clients, ensuring that we're looking after their plant and assisting them to make sure that the plant doesn't run to fail or break down. So there's a large part of this where we ride that journey with them. And I just wanted to make a note of that. For people out there to understand, it's not just all about fabrication for us and in installations. It's about fitting maintenance as well as the heavy rigging side and the heavy fab. So like I said to you before, it's like the one-stop shop. We have it all within Motion Engineering Services. So I just hope that you guys out there get a better understanding on how we operate, whether it's industrial services or it's Anthony around the engineering, the specialised engineering side of it, because it all plays an important part and a major part to making sure that our clients' plants operate effectively. Just on some safety considerations that we do during any shutdown, prior to even starting the shutdown, and again, this is in the planning phase. We obviously talk about the hazards and the activities that we're going to be doing. So, and around that's where we start to look at our SWIMs, if you want to call it that, or JSEAs. We start that early phase of that. And sure, during the job, we might have to stop because something changes. So therefore, we stop what we're doing on the paperwork and we write down the changes and make sure that we follow what we're writing down to eliminate any sort of incident or eliminate hazard as best we can. We also go into looking at what PPE is, what sort of personal protection equipment that people need to wear for that particular job plan. And it's not always just your clothing. It could be, I'll give you an example, where our guys sometimes go into an area where the environmental side of it's not the best. So therefore they wear what they call an AdFlow, which is a shield that has oxygen flow through them and they go through filters. And that's to eliminate them breathing in any sort of nasty things that could be out there in the environment. But like I said, it's not just about the clothing they wear, it's also the equipment that they use. We've got to make sure that forms part of that shutdown. And when we actually finally get on the job, it's around isolating. We want to make sure that generally it is the people or the client's responsibility to isolate the machinery because they know their machinery. So when they get isolated, it's probably, well, it is our job. We've got to need to make sure when we go to put our lock on to make sure and to verify that equipment is not live anymore, that we check the paperwork and the isolation procedures have been signed off and it's signed off for that day, and that we have the go ahead to be able to go and start that shutdown or that replacement of that machinery, just depending on what it is at the time. And obviously during the execution of the job, we make sure we provide adequate training. Now, with that, depending on the job, there are jobs there where people have to be ticketed for certain things. If we're working up high, might have to have a working at heights ticket, or if they're going to operate an EWP, which is an elevated work platform, they've got to be able to ticketed to drive that. Depending on the tasks, also where there's training involved in that side, and we've got to have the right people for the right job. We want to always monitor safety conditions throughout the shutdown, remembering I've said before and early in this piece that our safety is just important as our quality. So it needs to be addressed from the beginning. And the other thing is, if we do find incidentals or near misses, that they are recorded and that we talk to the client about it and our safety people, so we can put some protocols into it, not only to protect others, but also for the future. So if we go to do that job again, we know that that hazard was there on the last time, that we can try and eliminate it for next time. Again, I can't stress that enough, that our safety is just as important as the quality for the client. Next slide. So just on motions, value propositions. So I think some of you that do work for Motion have probably seen this, but for others, it's tailored engineering services that meet specific customers' needs, reliable maintenance that ensures equipment reliability. We want to minimise downtime through the efficiency of scheduling. Again, preparation is the big key for any shutdown. Committed to high standards and expectational workmanship. And that speaks for itself. We want to put the right people on the right job, have the right gear, the right tooling to execute it. And the last one, this one's a big one for me. It's around about having relationship with ongoing success. Remember, this is a people's industry. We don't sell items. As engineering services, we sell people. So we want to make sure we look after our client and look after our people that we work for. Anthony, you got anything else to add to that part?
Yeah, no, I just want to absolutely. The mindset is a customer first mindset. You start from there, and you look after your staff and you look after your customers, and everything else will work into place. As long as we've got the right people who are competent and we've got the right resources, we'll always come up with the right answer. So yes, that would absolutely, from a value proposition point of view, the customer first approach, and that we always end up in the right place. That's for sure. Next slide, Daniela, because we talk about some of the services that not just between Steve and my team, but also from Motion, our engineering services in general. These are just a number of services, but between pipework installation, similar to what Steve showed earlier, pressure testing and flushing, and the plant shutdowns, whether it's large, small, medium, or big, large crews or small crews. Absolutely, bearing and gearbox installations, bearing inspections. These are just standard dime a dozen services that we provide every day of the week. Equipment installation and commissioning. Obviously, we've got balancing, laser alignment, thermography, oil sampling. These are, from a maintenance point of view, very common tasks that are carried out at the vast majority of our customers' sites. So there's a piece if their customers have got a gap in their current skill set and they're looking for support. We certainly consider. It'd be great if you consider motion in that particular thought process. And one area that we haven't really touched on today, but which Motion's engineering and services team is absolutely at the forefront of industry, is in our hydraulics. So as far as the hose vans that we've got, I'm not too sure exactly how many hose vans we've got running around now, Steve, but it's a lot around the country, in the hundreds, but also with the ability to rebuild cylinders and hydraulic systems is something that we absolutely specialise in. But and then gets on to what Steve was touched on earlier: steel fabrication and installation of fabrication work, or especially mine site maintenance work, similar to what I presented right at the very start. And there's also a range of rental equipment that we supply to support the services that we offer, and about, again, pressure testing, as you said at the start. But I think we're going to do a bit of Q&A. Danielle, I'm not too sure if there's many people have loaded any questions, but if you haven't yet loaded any questions and you wanted to ask something on the back of what's been presented by Steve and myself, please drop something down. We're here to answer whatever we possibly can. Has there been anything shared, Daniela?
No questions yet, so we'll just give it a couple minutes. So Kitty has asked, what strategies are you using to collaborate with your suppliers in order to provide the best solutions for your customers?
I'll jump in there, Steve, on that one. So when it comes to our suppliers, as far as product suppliers is concerned, remembering this is I suppose we're talking about from a services point of view, and the purpose of this particular presentation. But we're working constantly with our suppliers as far as to use from a training point of view, to make sure our staff are at the forefront of the knowledge of what are the most innovative tools or the innovative methods in order to, or safest, if there's been improvements in safety opportunities through our suppliers. So absolutely, our staff are educated. Our services team are educated based on the ability of not only industry standards, like Steve touched on earlier, with regarding specific tickets that are required for tasks. There's also, in particular for the engineering, the specialist engineering team, as in my team, we are constantly being trained by our suppliers with regard to finding, the latest and greatest when it comes to what is the most innovative technique.
Not only that, we also, with our clients, if there are things that they want us to purchase or get, we'll always recommend the ones that we work closely with, and to be our suppliers, to be able to sell their items, to be able to sell that to our client as well. So we obviously ride that journey with the people that we want to be able to utilise and use for our suppliers. So I definitely always put that out there if there's those items that we need to purchase for a job.
Anything else, Evelyn?
I can't see anything else, so I guess we'll just wrap up.
Hey.
Well, I just want to sort of take an opportunity to say thank you to Daniela and Shevlin I suppose, coordinating this, and also well done, Steve, for what we're able to present. But most importantly, to all you people, all you guys that have logged on, thank you for your time. We really appreciate you spending, putting aside an hour in your otherwise very busy schedules. For both Steve and myself, we're very accessible and very we're more than happy to take a call from anyone at any time. So if this isn't the format that you wanted to discuss things, but you certainly got some questions, don't be shy to reach out. We'll certainly help you out and give you some guidance and detail about what it is that what we do and how we do it and why we do it, without any hesitation at all. So please reach out. But most importantly, thank you very much for logging on.
Yeah, I'd also like to say thanks for listening. I hope you guys got something out of it, and I hope we explained what we actually do in a bit more detail, so you've got a bit more of an understanding across motion what our services does. So really appreciate it. Not every day we do these webinars, so I'm hoping that we were educational to you guys as we were to ourselves. So thank you.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.